Welcome to Marc My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Marc My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Let's be real, leading a business is lonely. When the big decisions land on your desk, who do you actually talk to? That's where GrowX Labs comes in. Their executive decision support gives founders and execs direct access to a strategic sounding board. Someone who's been in the trenches and knows how to cut through the noise. Whether it's team tension, high stakes moves, or just needing to talk it out, GrowX helps you move forward with clarity and confidence. Head to growxlabs.com/mark. That's GRWX labs.com/mark and book your discovery call. I must not have much of an ego because I think one of my favorite aspects of doing Marc My Words is actually admitting when I don't know something or when I'm wrong, which hopefully I won't be too wrong about anything today, but I'm definitely coming into this episode a little out of my wheelhouse as far as Jeremey Neilson's entrepreneurial specialty here. He is the co-founder and CEO of Sally and is one of the most knowledgeable voices on the evolving special purpose vehicle landscape. Now, I've been to Jeremy's website. I've been trying to read up a little bit, and I will admit that I am still a bit lost, but I am going to continue with the intro that I have because the SPV software platform that automates setup, onboarding, closing, and administration for modern capital raises, helping investors, founders, and syndicates run clean, fast, and branded SPVs with ease. All things SPVs, all in one place, is what Sally is at least partly about. Because, again, I'm a little bit out of my wheelhouse. But if you've been listening to Marc My Words for the past several years, every once in a while, a brilliant person from the state of Utah drops a message in my inbox, and I have had some fantastic conversations with entrepreneurs from Utah. And even though I'm a little out of my scope of knowledge and out of my comfort zone, I had to have Jeremey on this show because I know he has an interesting story, and I just know that entrepreneurs from Utah are a slam dunk for Marc My Words. Jeremey, welcome to Marc My Words. How you doing today?
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the no pressure intro.
That's how we roll here on Marc My Words. The
Got it.
pressure is all mine. And I will give you a chance to clarify and fill in the blanks as we go. I don't know. I don't even know who I'm emulating with the fancy intros I try to do. I guess I think I am like the Tonight Show. I don't know. But um, you know, it's Marc My Words. So welcome, welcome,
Thank you.
and I'm your host, Mark Schmidt. I most of the time don't even mention my name. I'm Mark Schmidt. So welcome, Jeremey, and as promised, I'm going to just we're gonna tell your story because you have a really great, interesting story. We're going to lead, hopefully, into where you are today. And I know that, you studied business, you studied law, which was a pipe dream of mine until I actually saw what real uh, court proceedings are like and found out that I'm not near serious enough for that environment. But let's just talk about like what you were dreaming of doing as you grew up. Were all these things that you studied, law, business, were these things that you wanted to do, or did it just kind of happen organically?
Yeah, thank you. Looking back, I could tell that I was very entrepreneurial throughout my entire childhood. I remember doing the lemonade stands. I remember trying to sell baseball cards. I remember thinking up like an amusement park type thing in my backyard, and we'd charge tickets. And I was always that person thinking up ideas. But when it came to school, I just wanted to get enough education that I would have all the tools in my toolbox, if you will. And so I decided to go to law school. So I went to Brigham Young University undergrad, and I actually thought about doing accounting. My father is a very successful accountant, and I just did not like the rigor. What I mean by the rigor is just kind of that really head down, put your nose in a book and like stay there for many, many hours. I just didn't like that. And I thought, well, I want to do big things. I want to do cool things. I want to build things. I want to be part of this, that, or the other. And so I decided to get a law degree. It was not that idea of like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to represent people. I want to fight for the little guy. That wasn't what was in my mind. It was, I don't know really what I'm going to do or what I really, really want to do, but I really want to have the skills and the toolkit to move forward or to take that job or to do the thing that perhaps might pop up. And so I went to law school and immediately enjoyed the law, but immediately did not want to be a lawyer. And what's unique about law school, and it's probably in most programs, but I went into it thinking I'm not really going to be a lawyer in a traditional sense, but you get wrapped up in it. And everyone's like, what law firm do you want to work for? Did you see how much they're paying? Right? It's kind of competitive. And I'm like, okay, I can be a lawyer. I'm going to go be a lawyer. But it just in my heart, I just knew that really wasn't me. And eventually, after lots of rejections, it was 2001. So everyone was getting rejected. And I just knew that I did not want to be that lawyer. And the other final thing on this topic was the golden handcuffs. I knew that if I'd taken that law job, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, whatever that price, that salary would be, I knew I was going to spend all of it, right? Buy a new car, a house, whatever it is. I was married, I had children. And I knew that I would be very difficult for me to then leave and do something entrepreneurial and start something and be um, nimble and be able to take something. So I shied away from it and did not do the traditional law job and kind of continued in the education and got an MBA so that I could go the business route.
That's really interesting that, you talk about how cool you wanted to do something that you interpret as cool. And I feel like I kind of had the same kind of mindset, which is why I chose the field that I chose, is because I wanted to do something really big, like become and just for those who don't know what I majored in like television production. So I'm thinking I want to be, I don't know, like a part of the Tonight Show. We'll just keep going with the Tonight Show here. And like I wanted to be a part of a big production, and that's what I thought it was going to be like. As it turned out, I've spent my whole career doing quality control on shows and commercials and, you know, very cool work, but it's not exactly like what you envision. And I'm guessing that you might have learned the same thing as you went through your process. Like, okay, this is not exactly what I envisioned. Is that correct?
Yeah. Law is very much like that. You can watch it on TV, the dramas and stuff, and very, very, very few people ever go to court ever. For the most part, you are drafting documents and talking with people. And I have a personal issue myself, just personally, I just don't do well grinding and grinding on documents. And as I've gone through my career, being a lawyer is very similar to being an accountant, like grinding on the numbers, knowing all the numbers, knowing where they all go. Same thing with legal documents, knowing that this provision refers back to that provision, and these words, revert back here and ties a string to this provision and this document over here and these three documents over here. And you almost have to be a bit of a savant, right? You have all these things loaded into your head, and it's not too dissimilar than programming. Knowing the code and how the code interacts and relates and affects each other. And I heard somebody say once, like, my husband's this great programmer. He loads all the code into his head and then starts working. And if I interrupt him, like, all the code leaves, and then he has to load it all back into his head. And being a lawyer is the same way. You kind of sit down, be quiet, load all the provisions, all the facts, like, into your head, and then you're working. And that's just not my personality. I want to, like, build. I want to be innovative. I want to be spontaneous. I want to be nimble. And so as I learned what the true day-to-day, everyday thing was with regards to law, it just wasn't that interesting to me.
And that probably squashes anybody's dream of what being a lawyer is really like. And I don't know if I even knew how mundane it was until you described it the way you did. So I'm like, man, if you would have laid it out to me like that 30 years ago, I never would have even entertained the idea of doing law. Now, it's funny because I wound up doing something that I think a lot of people would interpret as mundane and boring, cumbersome, if you will. But I think the only thing that might be different is that you're being entertained all day, even if it's like car ads, which, believe it or not, car ads can actually be entertaining. And I get to see a lot of pretty cool stuff just in my day to day. So it's like just stuff that most people wouldn't normally see. But I'm like completely going off track here, but let's kind of like get back on track. So you figured out that law wasn't for you, and you started thinking about more of a business track. Where did you go from there?
So I wanted to go the business track, like you said. So I decided I needed the MBA. Every time I went for a job, they would just send me over to the law department. I couldn't get a business job with just the law degree. So I picked a 3 semester or MBA program rather than a 4, just because I felt like I just did law school for 3 years. Surely some of that time could mark off or cross off a little bit of MBA time. So I picked a 3 semester program, got into the MBA program, and joined a student group that was doing venture capital stuff. It's called the University Venture Fund here in Utah, and we got the chance to do due diligence for venture funds on the companies that they found. And we got access and had free reports and just added value to the overall due diligence that the venture firm was conducting. From there, this job came through this University Venture Fund. And it was called the Utah Fund of Funds. And the state of Utah had passed some legislation. They wanted to do a program in the state of Utah to encourage venture capitalists to spend more time and money in the state of Utah, because Utah has great entrepreneurs, just like you said, Mark. We have this very deep historical thread or seam of entrepreneurship in the state of Utah. And many companies were leaving and going to California to find money. So if we have this program, then they'll stay in Utah. So to step back slightly with that law degree is I knew that law degree would be valuable to me. I just didn't know when. I didn't know when I would cash in on it. I didn't know how it was going to be valuable, but I knew that it was a nice big gold nugget in my pocket. And so I start this MBA program 2 semesters in. This job comes across my desk. I want this job. I want this Utah Fund of Funds job. This is what I would call cool. And back in the day, for me, cool would be respected anywhere. Meaning, I could go to New York City and meet someone and say, "What have you been doing?" I'm like, "I've been doing this Utah Fund of Funds thing," and they'd be like, "That's impressive." So I thought it'd be amazing. So I apply, work really, really hard, go to those interviews, guns a blazing, ready to go. And my law degree got me that job. Nothing else. The MBA didn't get me that job. Nothing got me else that job. That law degree got me that job because legislation, legal documents, investments, entities, all that stuff. So, like day one, right? Cashed in on that law degree, got the Utah Fund of Funds job, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. We got to set it up. We got to go from just legislation to creation to investment, and I got the chance to do due diligence and meet all these people, and I got to meet companies and venture capitalists and private equity groups and government people and business leaders, and it was just amazing. It was a government program, so there was politics and backstabbing and all that stuff as well, and ultimately kind of ran its course 7 years into it. They asked me to step aside, and that's fine. But it was just like this immersive, amazing experience that I had, where I got to use the MBA, got to use the law degree, and got to be in an industry that I found fascinating, which was private asset investing, and started the next part of my chapter. But that law degree, MBA, Utah Fund of Funds was kind of the beginning of what became the next 20 years.
So, mark my words, when I started this show, the whole rigid point, especially at the very beginning, was I meet an entrepreneur, they have a career transition story of some sort, and they come on and they tell that because one of my primary goals in the way beginning, way back, was, and it still is one of my goals. I feel like I say this is my goal or this is my reason, but I have thousands of goals and reasons and all that. But I know that when I first started, I wanted to have people come on, tell their stories, and inspire them with their career transition from working and trying to climb the corporate ladder to being their own entity and their own uh, person. Um, so I feel like in this case, it sounds like you have like a classic transitional story that kind of captures one of the spirits or themes of what I want this show to be about. Because I have really branched off over the years and have had all kinds of stories, but I would love to hear how you transitioned into entrepreneurship.
Um, Love to tell the story. The Utah Fund of Funds felt very entrepreneurial, and that was because I didn't really have a boss. We had these nonprofit boards who were my boss, but I was basically left to my own. But I knew it wasn't mine. Um, so I used it. I enjoyed it because it was entrepreneurial. I enjoyed it because I got the chance to do it my way and have my own culture, my own structure, my own agenda. Eventually they said, we want you to move along. And so I find myself without a job. And so I'd been doing that for 7 years. I was considered by most that had done the best program in the country. I had been contacted by almost every state in the union. How did you do it? Can you tell us about it? Can you visit with us? And so I thought, I've got this resume. I can wrap this up. I can productize this. People are going to want me. And so I come up with a product. I've left the Utah Fund of Funds. I come up with a product that's similar with regards to helping communities or municipalities or states or whatever bring private asset capital to their community. I go around and I pitch that for a good 6+ months, and like nobody's buying. So very distressing, very scary. So kind of the severance money's run out, the few extra dollars have run out, and so the idea didn't work. So that was scary and disappointing and frustrating. So I'm like, well, what do I do now? Well, I decided to do a kind of a slight pivot to that, where I would do my own fund of funds. Like the Utah Fund of Funds was a fund of funds, and I'd just do my own market based, right? No government, no tax credits, nothing. Just I'm a great manager, give me money, invest in me. So I launched what I called the Assure Fund of Funds, and I found a little bit of potential interest. Ultimately, our kind of anchor investor, who was really showing a lot of interest, basically just took the idea and did it himself. So I failed at that. Kind of 6 months later, 8 months later after that, nothing. Failed at that. So we're in about, we're about 22 months. No, sorry. About 15-ish months since I lost my Utah Fund of Funds job. Haven't had any success yet. Haven't made any money. Haven't created any products that anybody wanted. And then this opportunity comes up called the Nevada Fund of Funds. So I did the Utah Fund of Funds. Nevada wanted a similar product. And I talked to some people that were on the inside, and they're like, they talk about the Utah Fund of Funds every meeting. They're like, if we could have a program half as good as the Utah Fund of Funds, it would be a home run. And I'm thinking, great. Why don't you just hire the Utah Fund of Funds guy? And then you're kind of guaranteed to have this amazing experience or program with the state of Nevada. And that just made complete sense to me. And they also didn't have any of the qualifiers that they usually do, like you need to have $1 billion under management, you need to have other programs. Like it was like wild, wild west. Anybody could apply. You didn't really need to have much of a resume. So I'm thinking, great. You talk about me every meeting. I'm offering me to you. I'm for sure going to get selected. So work for a couple months getting our paperwork together and submit the paperwork. And right about that same time, it submitted the paperwork, and I was on a little staycation in Utah with my wife and children, and my phone rings, and I don't recognize the number. I answer it, and this group is like, "Hey, so-and-so introduced or told us to call you. Would you be interested in going in on an SBA contract? Like we win these all the time, and we need a third party, some help with us, right? To join our team." Found out the application, the RFP, and I'm like, sure. Like I don't care. Like I've been failing left and right. Might as well. So they go, great, right, and kind of hang up, and I think nothing of it. So I'm very eager about this Nevada Fund of Funds. Well, ultimately, I don't even get in the first cut. Like I don't even make the first round. I just get cut. And that was quite distressing for me. I had to, a transition. You talk about transition, like this feels like taking my prior 7, 8 years of experience and flushing it down the toilet. I couldn't find anybody to hire me for any reason. I don't even make the first cut on this Nevada. Okay, so back to, it feels like I'm flushing this career down the toilet. This transition is now forced upon me. It's necessary for me to completely pivot to something else, and that was very scary for me. And there were months after that where I really had nothing going on. I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to apply to what. I started to reach out to some people and started to kind of have some interviews and whatnot. But yeah, I basically went 2 years without having any success, without making any money, um, and just kind of failing. And that was a big that's a very big part of my story, my life story, my career story, my entrepreneurial story of just failing for 2 years. That it was very painful and continues to even be tender today as I sit and think about it. I can get emotional about it.
And I mean, that's very justifiably so. I feel like stories like yours are very important to hear because I know I've been living the entrepreneurial life while working a day job for 6 years, and it's not easy. I mean, I can make a little money off of doing this show. I know I've thought a lot about growing my show, or just not even growing my show, just growing as a business. But between living my own life, having a full time job, etc., it's not easy. And I know some people, they find their way and it sounds easy, they make it look easy, but when I hit stop on doing these episodes and we're off living our own lives, I mean, the grind can be real and it can be very challenging. And I know just running this show, just to use myself as an example, I know I've talked about it, but there's been times where I myself have thought about giving this up because you get discouraged, especially if you're like a solopreneur. You can get discouraged and it can be tough, if you have a tough day with it or a tough moment, just something that you feel isn't reflective of you. I mean, that's a big hit to your ego and just maybe even your confidence. And you almost have to, at least for me, you have to dig deep, remember why you're doing it, remember, just why you're passionate about what you're doing, dust yourself off, and eventually keep going. And I know I've had a few moments just over the past 6 months or so where it's been a little bit rough sailing, whether it's just been personal stuff or even things to do with running this show. And it's like, man, I don't know how much more I can like deal with this. But then when I have episodes like this and they're like going great, such a good conversation, it always reminds me, it energizes me. And those are the things that you have to try to remember. And I don't know if any of that kind of stuff is what kept you going because that's a long time. That's quite a battle to be fighting.
Yeah. I tried to get work. I apply. I say to people, mostly serious, very little joking. People don't hire me. I'm not someone people hire. I have friends that just be like, oh, I'll just go get a job tomorrow if I need to get a work job or whatever. People don't hire me. So I would try to get work, but didn't work out. And so what was somewhat unique about this experience is right here at the tail end. I got a job where somebody hired me to do some fund administration for them. So they had a venture fund and they wanted to revamp, improve their documents, pitch deck, one page or stuff like that. So I went in house and they asked me to do that, and I did. And they also wanted me to fundraise for them, which I tried. I didn't like that much. And what I discovered very, very quickly is I don't like working for other people. There's nothing wrong with other people, nothing wrong with their jobs or anything like that. But for me, like, I want to do my culture. I want to do my thing. I want to do my vision. And so I get this job and I'm working and they're paying me. And I also get that SBA contract. So that group calls me back and they're like, "We did it." And I'm like, "Who are you? I don't even remember." Like, we put in for that SBA RFP. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right. That was months and months ago." So I kind of get two jobs at the same time. And so that is great. The job where I go in every day and I do what the people ask me to do and they give me my tasks and I work on them, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I just can't. I'm like, how do I even survive? I don't even want to go in the office. It has nothing to do with them, right? Like, they're great people, super great product. They're successful. I'm just weird or broken or different, right? I just can't handle working for other people. And so, about 4 months after getting that job, I quit. I say, my poor wife, right? So she went through with it for 2 years, stays with me, right? Supports me, loves me, great woman. And then 4 months after getting a job, I quit. She was very supportive, and luckily, 30 days after that, I got my first client. So I'd created a new product around doing this fund administration thing for other people, but doing 5 clients, 6 clients. Because what I was doing for this guy who was amazing, he was awesome. I just didn't need all day. I could do it in a couple hours per day. So why not decrease the price a little bit, get 5 of them, and make a lot of money, right? And so I've got the SBA. I got the SBA thing, which is a moment in time each year. It's like 3 months each year. And then I start getting these clients. And so I finally made it, right? 2 years later, I finally got a product that some people are buying. I've got this little side gig with the SBA, and I'm doing some fund administration for some people, and it's working. It's not perfect. It's not, right off in the sunset, but it's working. I'm paying my bills. Things are okay. And so a year after that, after the SBA a contract, and kind of a year after I quit that first job, I get a phone call. I'm in the backyard. I'm pushing my youngest child on a tree swing, and my phone rings. I answer it, and this person on the other end of the line has an Australian accent, which I don't do well with accents, period. Particularly Australian accents are a little bit hard for me. So I'm struggling to try to, to understand. And this person says, "Hey, so-and-so told us to call you. Can you figure out how to do funds in bulk?" And I didn't know what he was saying, but I said yes. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in the business. I've got a law degree. I did the Utah Fund of Funds. I did the SBA. I've got fund administration clients. I can figure out whatever you're asking for. I can figure this out. And what he was asking for was, he's saying, can you figure out how to do SPVs faster, quicker, more affordably than they are today, is what he was really asking. But the terminology wasn't there yet. And this was Angelus. Angelus called, and they were brand new. My little company was brand new. They had 6 employees. I had 2. There's 2 of us. And they asked me if I could figure out how to do these SPVs for them. And I said yes. And they said, great. And they sent me 8, like the very next day. And from there, things just went crazy.
Well, first of all, you're not weird for not wanting to like take direction from people because I am 1000% the same way. And I think every job that I have ever had that I actually really liked was a job where I could be resourceful, autonomous, and whatever other big independent type of word you want to throw in there. That is who I am. And I feel like really what I hear is that you're just a part of this family of people who just want to work for themselves and, work under their own infrastructure. And there's about 200 other people on this show who just fall into the same category. And I I probably define it better than I think I do, but I feel like the quality is like a couple different traits, but it's like a little hard to really like pinpoint like the personality type. I don't have a psychology degree or anything like that, but we all have kind of like that trait, just that, you know, I want to work under my own system. I know I can do it. I believe in myself. I'm gonna do it. And then you went out there like you were determined, you stayed resilient. There's so many words that can like define what makes people like us who are crazy enough to go on this journey and just keep on going. And I do want to speak to the fact that once you got that first client, because I know for me, once, it took a year or two, but once I like started this show and started getting guests and putting them out there and they were getting heard a little bit, it's like, that's it. You get more requests than, at least I'm just thinking on my own behalf, I get more requests for people to be on this show than I can do with. Like, I only have so much time, unfortunately. And I'm guessing that you probably learned something a bit similar. It's like you're in the club, you're full speed ahead.
Yeah. Work begets work is a phrase my brother uses, and yes, it started to roll. My first client product wasn't great. I had 3 or 4 clients, but it didn't really grow. And that's kind of something that I've experienced through my career is you can kind of see if you have something, nothing wrong with 3 or 4 clients, but it wasn't going to turn to 5 or 8 or 12 or 50, right? When we launched with AngelList, we didn't really even launch. We just said yes, right? So we said yes, and I still have this admin outsourced part-time fractional thing going on. And with AngelList, I just was like, it could be more money, right? I don't know if it is going to be anything, but I said yes. So they send me, some work, and within 30 days, because the AngelList launches this product, and within 30 days, everyone's like, how does AngelList doing this? This isn't possible. How are they doing this? Which was, and I'll explain it to you briefly, which is, how do they run SPVs for such a low price? Previously, so maybe I'll describe an SPV real quick for everybody. An SPV is an acronym for Special Purpose Vehicle. And a special purpose vehicle is a legal entity used to raise money to invest into a private asset. A public asset is on the stock market. Private asset is everything else. It can be a startup company. It could be real estate. It could be investing in art, yachts, jewelry, whatever it is, cars. It can just be anything that's not on the stock market. And what happens is when you want to invest in that, you can do it two ways. One is they call it direct, which is you go into your pocket and you pull out your money. So if somebody says, "Hey, I have real estate here, like I'm going to sell an apartment complex to you." You can write a check for $5 million and own it. That's called direct. But if you said, "I don't have $5 million, but me and three friends, us together have $5 million," then many times what you do is you create an SPV or a syndicate or a sidecar or a fund of one or a drop down fund. There's all these phrases that people put on this structure. So you launch an SPV and then all three of you put in, let's say, 1.2 million, whatever it is that you put in. And now you have 5 million in this SPV, and then the SPV takes all three of your dollars, combines them, mixes it up, and sends one $5 million check or wire over to the owner of the apartment complex. It's the same for startup companies, secondary stock, anything that you're buying. If you can go direct or you can go through a special purpose vehicle. And so previously, before AngelList and me, you went to a law firm and you would pay $300,000 for documents and legal advice and structuring and setup. And they would then help do the SPV, but they would not do ongoing maintenance. They would not do taxes. They would not do post-close activities. They wouldn't do anything else unless you continue to pay them their hourly wage. And even then, they wouldn't do a lot of stuff. So we bundled all of it together for $8,000. So $300,000 to $8,000. So everyone is like freaking out. How did we do it? Real quick was we stripped it down to the bare bones. We just said, "Do you need this? No. Do you need that? No. Do you need this? No. Do you need that? No." So we just stripped it down to bare bones and created a product that would set up the entity, onboard investors, take the money and buy the asset, and then do the taxes and do the ongoing post-close activity. And so when people saw this, they were like, "Who in the world is doing this? This is crazy." And AngelList wasn't doing it. I was doing it. My company was doing it. AngelList was doing the finding of the deals and finding the investors, very important. But once those two were found, I was doing all the work after that. And so my company name was listed in the Q&As, question and answers. And so I didn't have a website for this product. I didn't have it on anywhere. I didn't have it on my LinkedIn. It was nowhere. And so people would find my name in the Q&A, and then they would go to LinkedIn, and then they would reach out or they'd call me. So pretty soon the phone just started ringing. And so we were just kind of doubling. We had one client, then we had two, and then we had four, and then we had eight. And after about 15 months, my co-founder and I looked at each other and just said, "This isn't going away. This is big." And so we shut all the other business lines down. So like that the fund administration one, we just shut everything else down, and we only did these SPVs. And it just doubled every year. Every year doubled the number of deals, number of money, number of employees, number of clients, everything doubled. And so going from like 0, failure to doubling was kind of a very stark and rough and abrupt experience for me, from those two bookends, from probably a little longer than you should want to go without having any success, to kind of once in a lifetime experience of having something, they call it, you got a tiger by the tail and you're just trying not to get eaten experience.
First of all, I just want to say, I think you explained what an SPV is brilliantly, because I sat here, I'm like, I think I actually understand this. So I came in, I'm like, I don't really know if I understand. It would be like if Jeremey invested in Marc My Words, but he would need to go through the SPV. You're shaking your head. Boom. I think I at least think I have the basic understanding. So I learned something today. And that's what this show is. Again, I always say this is what this is about. It's one of the things that this show is about. But one thing I can ask, who out there would this be like a good entrepreneurial venture for? Just, maybe not competing with you, but, just somebody out there who has the same kind of experience. Who would this speak to?
Yeah. I was pretty unique in a couple aspects. One, I had a law degree. And so, again, I've cashed in kind of a second time on this law degree. So I consider myself a creator of legal products or legal tech. Today it's legal tech. The prior business was, a legal product where you would typically hire a law firm. I just took all of those legal tasks and I bundled it and stripped out all the unnecessaries. Where I should not provide legal services or advice, I sent them to law firms. But for the most part, I could provide them with a process, service, templates, product that they would normally go to a law firm for. I also had the private equity experience. So I had that Utah funds experience. And the third one was I was very entrepreneurial. Usually lawyers aren't typically that entrepreneurial. So, and a lawyer tends to be a lawyer for a reason. They like the billable hours. They like the somewhat consistency. They like the structure of it. I hated it. So entrepreneurial, deep private equity experience, solid kind of legal expertise as well as all those things came together. And so even today with my newest company, Sally, it's all about me being very innovative around the SPV funding, fundraising, structuring elements of private asset investing. And one of the great things about these SPVs is that people can participate where they couldn't previously. So let me describe that. When I was at the Utah Fund of Funds and we were investing into venture funds, the minimum check size was roughly around $5 million. So for the Utah Fund of Funds to get access and invest into a particular fund that we wanted to invest in, they said to us, that's great. You have to write a check of $5 million or greater. And so if you take that back to the ecosystem, you, me, and others, you have to be accredited, but that just means $200,000 salary per year or $1 million of money. And that's a lot, but there's a lot of people in that bucket. It means that if I, who makes, let's say I make $200,000 and the minimum's 5 million, I can't participate. So I'm out. I'm locked out. When you do an SPV, the SPV has to put in 5 million, but each individual investor can put in less than that. Usually SPVs aren't used to raise $5 million to go into a large venture fund, but let's say it's a startup company. So let's say a startup company is raising $5 million total. And a couple people are writing big checks, $1 million here, $1 million there, but a few people are raising some syndicates, some SPVs. And they're going to let me write $1,000 check or a $5,000 check. Now I can participate, right? So before we created this SPV product, nobody was using SPVs for the most part. And so if you did use an SPV, you needed to be raising millions of dollars because your legal bill is $300,000. So you're still not going to allow the little guy to invest. I call SPVs the structure for the people, meaning for $1,000, I can now invest into a startup. I've seen people, invest and get some SpaceX shares or some XAI or OpenAI or Slack or Airbnb or all these different companies where they were able to get a piece, small little sliver, for $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 investment. So SPVs allow for the community at large, those that are in the accredited investor community, to invest and be a part of it and add private assets to their portfolio where before they were locked out.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that. And the more you talk, the more I'm like, boy, Jeremy was a real good fit for this show. If we should be hearing from anybody, it's people like you doing this kind of work on the scale that you're doing it. And I appreciate you breaking all this down for not only the audience, but for me especially, because I learned a lot today. And I appreciate you just sharing your experience here. And now I'm going to ask you to share how people can find you, how they can work with you, and anything else you might want to add.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so my company is Sally. It's at sally.co. And why did I call it Sally? Sally is another word for venture. I was looking for something that would be fun, light, and easy to pronounce and spell and find. And I found that Sally and venture are synonyms. And so sally.co is a website. I also have a YouTube channel called All Things SPVs. If you want to dig in, if you want to nerd out, if you want, on more and more things about setting up entities, security filings, legal documents, EIN numbers, all that kind of nerdery, then I've got a YouTube channel for that. You can find me through my website or through LinkedIn, Jeremey Neilson at LinkedIn as well. Love to connect with anybody that's interested.
Well, I am very interested, and I thank you for being on Mark My Words and sharing your journey. One quick question. So, Australia, you mentioned Australia. Australia and Utah seem to be like the two biggest entrepreneur spots in the world, at least that I've seen. I've certainly had a lot of you guys on this show. And I feel like I've asked enough Utahans now that I kind of get the idea of what is in the water in Utah that produces so many entrepreneurs, but I'm going to ask anyway, what do you think it is about Utah that produces so many awesome entrepreneurs like yourself?
Yeah, thanks. I believe that we have a very high accountability culture in Utah. Many of us are religious, but we just spend a lot of time focused on being great citizens, spending time helping others, serving others, which allows us to be outside of ourselves and thinking of others and things that we can do that is kind of more than doom scrolling or playing video games, if you will. It's just got a large culture here of historically just building stuff. And then finally, people like Utah. They want to stay. And that kind of goes back to the Utah Fund of Funds days, was that the Utah entrepreneurs wanted to stay in Utah, but if they needed venture capital money, so this is long before COVID, this is many years ago, venture capitalists would have a policy. They would say, within my kind of 100 miles policy, they would say, I need to be able to drive to your office. And so if you want my money, you must move to within 100 miles of my office so that I can see you often and come and visit you. Well, they would come to Utah, find great entrepreneurs, and if they wanted money, they were like forced to move the business back to California, wherever they're going to go. Utah was like, look, we're creating these amazing entrepreneurs. They want to stay here. What can we do to help them stay? And that was one of the efforts is, just Utahns like Utah. They want to stay in Utah. It's family friendly. Typically large families. They want to be close to family. And so they want to stay in Utah. So they launch their own thing. They build their own things, and they come from a high accountability culture.
Well, I can't wait to visit Utah someday because everybody I've met from there who I've had on this show and just everything you just said, it just speaks to everybody I've had on this show. I feel like that was a pretty spot on description from my perspective as well. Um, Even though I have not lived any of that. Um, yeah, like I said, slam dunk always
Yeah.
comes
Thank
out
you.
of Utah. So, Jeremy Neilson, thank you for being on Mark My Words. I appreciate your time,
Thanks for having me.
appreciate your story, and uh, keep on doing what you're doing. And that's all we have for Mark My Words. I'm Mark Schmidt. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon with another episode. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.